you already read the title. Also, yes, I'm using a TTS voice cause my normal voice is cringe. Anyway, I'm going to talk about my personal opinions on the Nintendo Switch 2, as now that the Splatoon spin-off has been announced, I think I should probably talk about it. Okay, first of all, let's talk about the Splatoon spin-off, Splatoon Raiders, a bit. I'm guessing you already know about it if you're watching this video, but I'll do a brief overview of it in case you haven't. A bit ago, Nintendo announced a new spin-off of the Splatoon series, Splatoon Raiders. We do not know much about it, but what we do know is that you play as a mechanic that lands on a series of islands known as the Spurhalite Islands, along with Shiver, Fry, and Big Man, the main idols from Splatoon 3. Along with this new game, they announced a new big update to Splatoon 3, but that's unimportant to this. However, at the end of this announcement, we unfortunately learned that this new Splatoon game will not be on the original Switch, and only on Switch 2. Now, for many, this isn't a big problem, as there are lots of people that already have the Switch 2. But for some people, including me, this is a very big problem, especially since I'm a Splatoon fan. There's two important parts about what I'm explaining, so I'll start with my main overall problem with the Switch 2, and then move on to why the whole Splatoon situation is a big deal. So, first of all, it's no surprise that when the Switch 2 was to be announced, there was going to be some drama surrounding it, along with the hype. However, when it was announced everything seemed to be so good, too good. When the time for pricing came around, people freaked out. The original Nintendo Switch's price was and still is $300. The Switch 2 is a whopping $450. Now, some could argue that it's because of the increase of frame rate and quality, which I agree is worthy of a raise in price. But the thing is, the only other really feature that should raise the price is the voice chat system, which still shouldn't raise it by a lot. But is an increase in quality and just adding voice chat worth adding another $150 to the price? I think not. Now, another big deal about the Switch 2's pricing is the games. On the previous Switch, each game is about $60 physically, and usually less digitally. On the Switch 2, each game is $80. The thing that annoys me about this is, there isn't really a reason to even raise the price of the games. If they were released on the original Switch, they would be $60. Again, some will say that the increased price is because of the better quality and frame rate, but that has to do with the console, not the game. So, more about the games on Switch 2. We all know that games from the Switch 1, like Kirby and the Forgotten Land, and Splatoon 3, will be compatible with the Switch 2, both digitally, and using cartridges. That means that if the cartridges made for Switch 1 work on Switch 2, the Switch 2 cartridges will work on Switch 1, right? Right? In fact, the answer is no. As we all know, Nintendo is known for being greedy sometimes, and my guess is that this is another one of those times. Another thing about the games is that we also know that Nintendo will be releasing exclusive versions of Switch 1 games made for the Switch 2. The only real difference though, is the change in graphics quality, which is, again, the console, not the game, and the fact that each game will have the tiniest sliver of new content exclusive to Switch 2. Not worth a $20 raise in price. One more smaller thing worth mentioning is the Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour. Although the price of this game is only $10, the game should honestly be free and come with the Nintendo Switch 2. You're literally paying money to learn how your Nintendo Switch 2 works, which should not be a thing. From what I have heard as well, the game is incredibly underwhelming and overall is absolutely not worth it. So as you can see, there is definitely a big problem with the Switch 2's pricing. I suspect that in the future that the prices will be lowered for everything, but for now, this is an annoying problem that should be fixed. Now onto the whole Splatoon thing. As we talked about, Splatoon Raiders is going to be releasing exclusively for the Switch 2. And we also talked about the fact that this isn't a big problem for some people, as they already have the Switch 2. But this is a big problem for people like me. So the thing is, I only have an original Switch, and don't plan on buying the Switch 2, because of the outrageous prices for everything. And I am a big Splatoon fan, as it is one of my favorite games ever, and when I saw the announcement for Splatoon Raiders, I knew I was going to get it. Until they stated it would only be on Switch 2. Now I guarantee there will be somebody who will be like, just buy the Switch 2 then. But spending $530 just to get a Switch 2 and the new Splatoon game, and then another $80 for each and every other game I want? Not happening. I don't mean for this to sound hurtful, but some people spend their money on things other than just video games. Now here's another thing that some people will definitely be saying. If you really don't want to buy the Switch 2, then you aren't gonna have Splatoon Raiders. It's not that big of a deal. And this is definitely true. It is not that big of a deal. But it's still a bigger deal than you might think for a Splatoon fan like me. Now the thing is, before I started playing Splatoon I didn't care about the game obviously. It didn't matter to me because I didn't have it. So when the original Splatoon released, I didn't care. When Splatoon 2 released, I didn't care. And for about the first week of Splatoon 3's release, I still didn't care. But eventually, when someone I used to be friends with introduced me to the game, I loved it. I had enough money to get the game, and we already had a Switch by then, so I bought it, and fell in love with the series. Only 2 months later, I got Splatoon 2. Now if you're a Splatoon fan like me, you might be wondering why I didn't get the first game. Or not. Well, even if you aren't, I'll still talk about it. The thing is, since the original Splatoon was released on the Wii U and not the Switch, I didn't necessarily want the game. I wasn't going to buy a whole new console just for the first Splatoon game. But if I was so attached to Splatoon, why wouldn't I? Well, here's the thing, because Splatoon and Splatoon 2 were released before I started playing the series, and because I started with Splatoon 3, they weren't as important as Splatoon 3, and anything that released after it in the future. If Splatoon 2 hadn't been released on the Switch, and on the Wii U instead, I wouldn't have felt the need to buy it. The reason I bought it at all was because I cared about Splatoon 3 the most, but since Splatoon 2 wasn't on a different console, and was also on the Switch, I thought that I should get it, and play it as well. But now that I've started playing Splatoon, and am a huge fan of the series, anything that releases after this, I'll want to buy. So, yes, I can live perfectly fine without Splatoon Raiders, because it isn't some big life-saving medicine that I absolutely need, but it will still be a bit annoying being a big Splatoon fan and not having the game. So, that's about all I have to say today. All in all, the Switch 2's games, and the console itself are priced way more than it should be, and the Splatoon Raiders situation can definitely be annoying for some of us bigger Splatoon fans that either don't want to waste money on, or can't afford the Switch 2. Thanks for wasting about 8 minutes of your time on me.